Howdy. I am coming to you live and correct, straight from my dining room again, facing the other direction this time. So you get to see the kitchen behind me, a fall decoration that still needs to be put away, all the things. I'm going to talk to you. This is going to be kind of a short one. We're going to talk about the elements of argument, and then I'm going to come up with another one that I talk about the Declaration of Independence. So you can watch this one, read the Declaration of Independence, think about the Declaration of Independence, talk about the Declaration of Independence on the discussion board, and then come back later today or tomorrow and watch the Declaration of Independence video, in which I will also talk about the homework for next week. So I'm going to share the old screen. In a moment here. Make this work at some point. There we go. Okay, so what I want to talk about are the four basic ideas we need to think about in terms of an argument. We're going to be writing lots of arguments. We're going to be constructing the arguments, analyzing arguments, thinking about arguments. The first thing we need to think about is the claim. This is the thesis of the paper, the main idea, the thing that we need our readers to believe when they're done with the paper. The main thing we want our readers to take away from the paper. So if you're writing a research paper, it might be this is the main reason the Battle of Gettysburg happened the way it did, or these are the main social concerns at play in War and Peace, or this is how photosynthesis works, right? The main claim, the main thing we want people to believe. In a commercial, generally the claim would be buy my product. In politics, the main claim would be vote for me, or secondarily support my policy. But really, it's vote for me, right? Last year in the election, we saw those ads for Biden, ads for Trump. Vote for me. Vote for me. When you're arguing with your friend about politics, candidate X is better than candidate Y. That's your claim. That's the thing you want to convince somebody of. And so remember, it can't just be a statement of fact. It needs to be something that has another side to it. Now, we could talk pros and cons, like legalization of marijuana, yes or no, or abortion, yes or no. But quite often in a more academic setting, we're all sort of on the same page, and the argument really has to be, and also in the business world, the argument isn't yes or no about some big major thing, but how do we go about accomplishing the thing that we all know needs to be accomplished? How do, not just like, how do we save money for our company? No, not that we need to save money for our company, but how do we go about doing it? Not that we need to eat lunch, but where should we eat lunch? Not that voting is good, but you should vote for me, right? Something that you can defend, something that needs to be defended, something that has another side, right? So if we're saying, don't be a racist, well, yeah, there is another side to that, but the other side is like racist assholes who probably won't be convinced based on a nice, thorough, well-researched academic argument. We're going to need to think about not don't be a racist, but ways to combat racism. Not don't be a sexist, but ways to empower minority people, ways to ensure that women and the LGBTQ plus community has access and has respect and has the ability to move up in the world without having their lives threatened or their safety threatened, or having to, not be themselves. Um, the claim, the thing that needs to be defended. How are we defending it? With support. Here's our second point of the four. The facts, the statistics, the research, the emotional appeals. Now, when we're talking about an academic argument, we don't necessarily need the emotion, right? We need facts and statistics. When you're talking about photosynthesis, your biology professor doesn't want to hear about how beautiful you think the trees are. Biology professor wants to know why it's working the way it works. If you start off your biology paper with something like, I just really love trees. It's so beautiful when they're green, and in the fall when they start changing colors and the beauty is just everywhere. Hell no. Professor doesn't want that. Professor wants to know why, away from the emotion. However, in other walks of life, in advertising, in politics, emotion is really, really important, right? Build the wall. Make America great again. These are emotional appeals. Based on patriotism, based on fear, based on racism to a certain extent. When we hear, they're sending us their rapists and their drug dealers, and that means fear, right? I mean, we don't want the rapists. We say drug dealers, and then we stop and say, well, which drugs? And he says coke and heroin. We're like, oh no. If he was like mushrooms, we'd be like, well, that's life goes on. Maybe we want some of that, but no, not the cocaine and the heroin. Build the wall, keep that stuff out. It's emotion. Did it work? No. Was it a good idea? Probably not. But it's not just Donald Trump that did that. Biden uses the emotion too. Advertisements use emotion. There was this McDonald's ad a few years ago. It's like this boring suburban white dad driving home from work at dusk, drives to McDonald's, picks up the food, goes home, brings the food to the family, and it's the son and the daughter and the wife, and they sit around, and daughter steals a fry from the son, and they all have a good chuckle. And I always thought, why? She's got her own fucking fries. Why does she need to steal his? But they have a good chuckle, and you think, if only I brought McDonald's home for my kids, we too would be pure and good like this family. It's emotional. We want to be like them. McDonald's can't give us the facts. They can't give us statistics. They're not going to sell burgers by saying X amount of rainforest was clear cut to bring you this sandwich, or Y amount of cows were anally electrocuted to bring you this sandwich. No, they don't want to. We don't want to know that stuff. They don't say, oh, this lunch has 1,437 calories in it. No, we don't. That's like 2 days worth of calories, maybe. Right? They can't give us the facts. They got to give us the emotion. So emotion has a place, not necessarily in the academic argument. The audience, these are the people that need to be convinced. It's the other side, right? We don't need to convince the people that already believe what we believe. We got to reach across the aisle to the other side. Now, when you think about Trump and Biden, there were certain people that were never going to be convinced by Trump or by Biden. Diehard Trumpers, diehard anti-Trumpers were not going to come across. But there were undecided people. I don't know how exactly, but there were. There were people that were like, well, I see both sides of this one. Those are the people they needed to reach. That's who you need to reach, the people that can be convinced that your idea is the best idea, not the ones who already agree, right? The audience, the people that need to be convinced. That doesn't mean everybody's the audience. If you go into your doctor's office and you're in the waiting room and there's a Sports Illustrated magazine sitting there, and you pick it up, just because you're reading the article doesn't necessarily mean you're the audience. The audience is probably, sports fans, not just anybody that picks it up. Now, Sports Illustrated is such that it's not that complicated. Even if you're not a very huge sports fan, you can probably figure out what they're talking about. But you're not really the one it's directed towards. An advertisement, like a diaper ad, it's directed to young parents. It's not directed to high school students without kids. It's not directed to, the elderly whose kids are all grown. It's directed to the people that have the kids in diapers, right? Those are the people that need to be convinced to buy them. Everybody could watch the show where the commercial is, but it's the people with little kids who haven't been potty trained that need that. They're the ones that can be convinced. The final thing is the warrant. The warrant is this shared belief, this common ground between the writer and the reader, between the arguer and the audience, between the speaker and the listener, if we're talking about a speech, because what we're doing here with argument is very similar to what you might get in your speech classes too. Works the same way, but one's written down and one's spoken. You can't argue about who to vote for if the person you're talking to doesn't believe in democracy. The warrant has to do with that common ground, that democracy is a good system. You can't argue about what to get for lunch if the person you're talking to isn't hungry, right? You need to have that common ground. You can't convince people to buy a Ford if the people aren't shopping for a car in general. I mean, a car is a big expense. You got to do a lot of work when you buy a car. Buying a pack of M&Ms, $1.50 at the checkout counter, people can throw those on the register and it's fine. But a car, no, you got to have that shared belief that buying a car is a good idea right now. The warrant has nothing to do with which car. The warrant has nothing to do with where to get lunch. The warrant has nothing to do with who to vote for, but just that these are good ideas, that we have a common ground, that we can reach out and find some basic connection with the person that we're arguing with or that we're trying to convince. So when you read the Declaration of Independence now, think about this stuff. Look for what the claim is in the Declaration of Independence. What's the support? What is Jefferson saying to back up that claim? He says a lot of stuff. Think about what he's saying. If you're thinking, well, this might be the claim or this might be the claim, think about what Jefferson is saying and then figure out what he's supporting with that stuff. Who's his audience? Who needs to be convinced of this? What do the people in his audience already believe? He's going to spell it out for us in a way that we don't usually get. Car ad, we don't usually say, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Reliable transportation is good. Yeah, we just say, buy a Ford, buy a Chrysler, buy a Subaru, whatever. We don't say, because we are both hungry, let us decide where to eat. We just say, hey, where do you want to eat? And then your friend says, McDonald's. And you say, McDonald's? You say, Arby's. And your friend says, why Arby's? And you say, because I hate myself. And I don't deserve anything better than the pain and discomfort Arby's might put upon my body a half hour after I eat it, right? You need to have that common ground, and that's the warrant. Think about what the warrant is in the Declaration of Independence. Hint, I already mentioned the first few words of it. We hold these truths. Something. Keep an eye out for that. Talk about it on the discussion boards, and then I will have another video later that talks all about the Declaration of Independence. Have fun, stay safe, keep wearing those masks, and I'll see you round like a record.